Saturday, MEGACON. Oh, thank you, sir. I am genuinely honored to be joined by one of my favorite actors in the world today. This man has brought so much heart to so many characters. He is one of us. He is in the fandom. He is the one, the only, James McAvoy.
That was a lovely introduction, so thank you. Hello!
All right, so I want to kick it right off because I could do this for 6 hours and I don't want to keep the man here that long. But you've been in so much fandom, whether it's DC Vertigo, Sandman, Marvel's X-Men, Tumnus.
The love from Mr. Tum.
I love the Tumnus love every time. But I have to know, over those years, you've seen this world grow exponentially. What keeps drawing you back in as your world changes?
Oh man, I don't know, but maybe sometimes people go like, what are you reading these days? And I'm like, oh shit, I need to tell them the truth. A lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy, and it's like, they want to hear, you know, I don't know, really intelligent stuff. But I think the truth is that when I'm reading or when I'm watching, I want to be transported, because when you're transported out of your world into another that's completely believable, not only is that exciting, not only does that feel like adventure, it weirdly lets you examine the issues that are in your day-to-day, that are too close, that are too near, that mean too much, that there's too much context with, that stop you from actually penetrating any of the issue or getting part of any of the discussion. And I think when we go to outer space, or when we go to Middle Earth, maybe not to Middle Earth as much, but it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's not really like we're examining the issues of modern day, you know, America or whatever. But when you go to outer space, a lot of the time I feel like you are actually talking about issues that matter down here, back here, in this time, our time, down here. Anybody get that reference? Yeah, thank you, the Goonies. And that's my answer. That was not very specific, sorry.
So it's like a Trojan horse in morality. You get to find your art in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it's just really cool to go to other worlds.
Yeah.
You know, all these worlds. And I feel like, I don't know, what have I been reading at the moment? Been reading the Bobiverse books. Anybody read the Bobiverse? No, thank you, one person. And, trust me and that guy know what we're talking about. And I feel like they're so good at taking you out of your world to help you understand your world.
And do you have a line in the sand for your fandom? I know you're a huge Trekkie and a huge Battlestar Galactica man. Would you want to be in those spin-offs, or would you want to keep your fandom your fandom?
I met the guys, the creators of Battlestar Galactica once, because they also make another show set in Scotland called Outlander, which a few of my friends in it. Oh my god! My mate Stephen Cree, who's in that, would love to hear this. And I was like, hey, I'm a massive fan. I mean, you know, I know you're going to make the movie or something like that, but they never ended up making the movie. I was like, you know, I'm happy to throw a hat in the ring if you want. And he was like, oh, you're so kind. I'm like, no, I'm deadly fucking serious. I want to be a Viper pilot, all right? So, yeah, what was the rest of the question? And then Star Trek. I've got a long and complicated history with Star Trek. Love it. Love Patrick. I've gone on record as saying I would play the young Patrick in a heartbeat. Yeah, I got some ideas, and they're good.
So let's get into the Patrick Stewart of it all. But starting with Michael Fassbender, because your relationship with him on and off screen is so beautiful. I love that friendship, and I love what you brought to the brotherhood between Eric and Charles. Was that an aha moment, or did it come from the friendship itself that just translated on screen?
I feel like that script, when it was really strong, and it had a lot of quirk and a lot of funny in it, but it also had a real element of not really feeling like a superhero movie at times. It felt more like a 60s spy movie at times, you know? And it was very much Michael's character bringing that into it, I felt. And it was very much Michael's film, really. But I think the thing that elevates the film is the energy and the fuel that the developing relationship brings to the film. And that was something that I feel like we really found. And went after, and we would augment whole little scenes with big stuff that we were just throwing in there, because I think we realised, if you're going to make a movie about two enemies, you've got to show, you can't just have them, if you're going to show the prequel of two enemies, what's the point in just showing them being two enemies again, You've got to show them be different. It was my approach to Charles as well. If you're going to make a prequel that features Charles, you can't just have him being sage and wise and good. He's got to be somehow different, so he's got to be selfish and up himself and and forgetting really what's important until he meets this person. Because Charles is a project guy, do you know what I mean? And he makes people his projects. And it's not until he's older that his ego and his own, I guess his own agenda and his own issues get out of the way. When he's young, those projects are still sort of gratifying his ego and giving him a sense and a taste of power, which I think is, even though he's not necessarily a bad guy, it's not necessarily healthy in those relationships all the time.
I think the ego and the hubris is one of the most slept on things we get. When you talk about like the moral compass in these films, you get to see these arcs because you get multiple movies to really grow into these characters. And I think that like psychologically, that's really interesting for fans that have read these comics for so many years, because we get them weekly, to see these growths in character development. Was there a moment of wisdom shared between you and Patrick Stewart about how to land with Charles as you were reaching that arc? Did he share any moment?
No, not really. I was on Days of Future Past, which is the movie where like every single actor who's ever lived was in the film. The older cast, they filmed all their stuff first for like 6 weeks, and then we all showed up. I was the first guy to show up from the younger cast, and so I obviously got a scene with Patrick, so I got to spend a few days with those guys. But we never really talked about that. Weirdly, I'd just come off stage playing Macbeth, which a lot of people feel funny about saying that. But Macbeth, come on, hit me with your bad luck. And Sir Patrick and Sir Ian were in their trailers, or in their trailer. I think they had separate trailers, but they might as well have just had a shared trailer because they were just in it the whole time together. And I think Patrick was cooking salmon or something like that. And like Sir Ian, I was having hair extensions put in at the time, and it was a 17-hour hair extension session. Because I turned up with hair that was like kind of like a military cut, like an inch or two on top and shaved at the sides. So we were like frantically trying to give me 70s hair. And so the hair was down to my backside at this point because they hadn't trimmed it yet. And I was halfway through the session, I still had another 8 hours to go. So I was sitting on the steps to their trailer whilst Patrick's cooking salmon and Sir Ian is stroking my fake hair. And we started talking about the fact that we've just all done Macbeth, and Sir Ian is a famous Macbeth, like from, I think, the 60s or the 70s at the RSC, did a revolutionary Macbeth, I think, with Dame Judi Dench. And then Sir Patrick, I think he's played it a couple of times, but recently played it as an older Macbeth. And so we all started talking about Macbeth, and then Sir Ian starts saying, why don't we just do it now, James? And I'm like, oh. And I've literally just come off stage doing it 2 weeks ago, and they start giving it big licks, big Shakespeare licks, and I can't remember a fucking thing. Like, you guys have got a combined age of like over 2 centuries, and you did it a long time ago, and I'm meant to be young and vibrant and all that, and I can't even remember my lines from it. So that was a lesson in just general acting. They were like, do you know, James, now it's your turn. And I was like, I think they need me back in the makeup chair.
I love that you got served, like the pair of them just like running Shakespeare.
What, the pair of them get served? I got served by the sirs.
Yeah, that's Now, Charles Xavier's conviction has always fascinated me because he's not always the most likable guy. He's not always the protagonist in every story. Was there anything that you found in playing him that you discovered you have horse blinders about?
Oh, hello. This is my microphone. This is what it really sounds like.
Was there anything that was like, I wasn't blinkered, but I was very committed to exposing sides of him that we hadn't seen previously. Even to the point where it was like the script in the movie kind of wants you to start becoming more like Patrick. I would fight it as long as possible. But by the time you're in like movie 4, it was like incumbent upon me to kind of play play him like Patrick did a bit more. But even then, we were still playing with his ego and playing with his lack of ability to see the truth. But I think if there was ever a movie 5, which clearly there isn't because Disney have bought it, I would probably be in the same kind of Patrick that Patrick was of him. That's a funny sentence, isn't it? I'd be the same kind of Patrick as Patrick was for him. You heard it here first, folks. But yeah, I was pretty blinkered and committed to showing negative and conflicting aspects of him to what we'd seen before.
Is there actually anything that you would, like a total, what if theory? We looked like we were heading towards like Legion and Onslaught and certain like psychologically traumatic characters. Is there any character you would have wanted to see had you gotten a 5th movie?
I mean, I always liked Gambit growing up, so just for that reason, yes. I feel like, yeah, he had a sort of harder accent to understand than mine, arguably, which made me attracted to him. I don't know, I think I'd like to have seen sort of a meaningful love story for him, because the one with Moira McTaggart, although lots of potential and great actor playing Moira, we never really chased it down. And do you know what, I would have loved to have seen more of him and Magneto together, because that first movie that we did, which I think was such a surprise for everybody, it was such a surprise for many reasons, but one of them was the strength of their relationship. And we never really chased that down with any conviction even in Days of Future Past, which I think is a fantastic film, we never really chased it down in that one either. So I would have gone back and chased that shit down.
I'd love like a small indie between the two of you, that'd be beautiful, man. Now, the balance between your view and Xavier, and obviously playing against Patrick Stewart's until you were going to be the Patrick of Patrick's in the next one, is there a line in the sand that you felt you had to draw with certain writers and directors where you're like, this is my Xavier, this is how I see him? I understand that you see him differently.
No, not really, because I think for the first movie, it was kind of in the script and it was open to us, and they really didn't mind me pushing the boundaries of his negative aspects, as long as we really harnessed this amazing new relationship that we were sort of finding as we were filming. Then as we went into Days of Future Past, and the next 2 after that, we had Simon Kinberg writing, who was on set producing and very collaborative. He was to his own distraction sometimes, because he worked so hard and rewrote so much, was so keen to take the actors that he had and use them and sort of take fuel from them. And to be honest with you, it was an honour getting to work with them, and a bit of a privilege, because not every writer is like that. And sometimes for good reason. Sometimes the writer writes it and it's perfect, don't touch it. Sometimes the writer wants to write for the actor as well, and he was so collaborative. So I never felt like I had to be like that with Simon. Simon was always looking for the truth from the performers to help inform the truth of the characters.
That's beautiful. That's good to hear. Now, this is my last X-Men question. I just love the X-Men. I'm 79 comics from every X-Men ever printed. I'm so close. I love me some X-Men. But I've always wondered, were there lines that you were pulling from the comics that got cut because the tone of the films was a bit more serious, like, to me, my X-Men, or any of the classic, like, hope you survive the experience? Like, did they ever do those fun throwaways?
I threw in To Me, My X-Men once, but then just felt like such a tool that I messed up the take on purpose so that we wouldn't be able to use it. Yeah, no, I don't feel like that at all. No, it was everything felt true to what we were doing, and it felt true for the movies that we were making, and also that kind of dialogue, I think, happens before we even get the scripts. Even if we're involved in the script writing, by the time they come back to us in pages, they've already talked about what gets to stay in and what doesn't. And then you get on set sometimes and you just start making stuff up. And like the director's like, yeah, just play with this or play with that, or an actor comes in with an idea and it changes what you were going to do, but you roll with it and it makes what you were going to do better. I was really keen. Havoc never got named, I don't think.
No.
And we were doing, what one were we doing? We were doing Apocalypse, and I was like, if I'm meant to be telling, I have to tell him to like destroy Cerebro or something like that. So I was like, why don't I say wreak havoc? And then at least that way we can kind of get away with like sort of naming him. But just stuff like that.
I love that on set you had that passion for it too, man. It shows. And those movies are so beautifully their universe that even rewatching them, I love that they feel like there's a world where X-Men are there. Now, the world of comics, the commentary in comic movies is also fascinating to me, so I want to talk about Split and Glass, because I think those are two of the best. Yeah! Those were weirdly so validating to see a filmmaker so passionately make a love letter to a medium, in another medium, for us.
Yeah.
And I feel like they are love letters that are forever in time. Like one feels like a golden age film, one feels bronze, one feels silver. And I really love that the style choices in each change. But I'm wondering, from an acting perspective, was there ever a moment that you went into a voice or went into a physicality that surprised even you because of the shape of the films being so jazzy?
Jazzy. You know, no. As the answer, because did I ever get really surprised? I mean, I get surprised. Sometimes I'm a very considered actor. I kind of plan what I'm going to do. I know what I want to do. If I'm not getting ideas of what I want to do when I'm reading the script, then the script probably isn't for me. It's either not good or I'm not the right actor for it. So the first time I read the script, I'm already pinpointing moments, what I want to do here, how I want to undercut something there, how I want to shock the audience somewhere, but then I want to make them laugh, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't always work, but you know, you got to try. And I think that the only time I get lost is mid-take. Sometimes you'll feel like all your planning, all your conniving and consideration goes out the window, and you, for a moment, you don't become the character, because you are the character. The character is you. There's nothing else. There's nothing else making that. It's just you. You don't go anywhere. But sometimes you do feel transported to these other realms and these other planets and these other solar systems or these other dimensions that I was talking about at the beginning of this, and it feels real. And that's why we do it. It's like, I mean, I'm not condoning drugs, anybody, but people take drugs to get that experience, that transcendent sort of changing of world, changing of becoming in an altered state. You become an altered beast. Anybody remember that game? And I feel like that was polite. I feel like nobody remembers Altered Beast. Okay. And that's one of the reasons I do acting. The other reason I do acting to people is to connect, because it's just communication, and that's what humanity has thrived on, being able to communicate. It's elevated us past the state of animal, and acting and drama and all of that, they are a form of communication, not just between you and the other actor, but between you and the audience. Definitely on film, 1,000,000% on stage.
Is that what draws you to certain scripts in particular? Is that like you haven't had this connection and you're looking for that at that point in your life? So like Filth or something that's like, you know, more of an experiment for your resume. Do you leap at things to find a new connection?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking to try and do something that I've never done before. I think that almost to the point where, like, I'm really lucky. I've never been pigeonholed. I've played all sorts of different kinds of characters. Almost to the point now where I feel like if I come out and do something wildly different, people are like, oh yeah, he can do that. Oh well. So maybe I should just like try and pigeonhole myself for 10 years and become that guy who does that one thing. But it's just constantly looking for a fresh challenge and an ability and a job that gives me the chance to perform, really, not just sit there and be some avatar of honesty and truth and realism, and let the director and the music maker, the composer, sort of give the punctuation and the definition to the film. Sometimes they just want you to sit there with open eyes and sort of breathe and be open, and I don't know, it's alright. Sometimes I like watching people do it, but it drives me bonkers as an actor having to do it.
Now, the physicality in particular in those two roles is insane. Those many roles in two films is insane. Did you find you acted different? Did it change your emotionality? Did you notice people treated you different when you got...
Did people treat me different?
Magnus is a big dude. I trained with Magnus once, and I saw that was your guy.
Magnus trained me for the second movie, where I was a lot bigger. The first movie we did, I had 2 weeks to prep the film. So, really, I was trying to work out to get bigger, but there was just no hope. You can't do it that quickly. The second movie, I was aware that I was going to have my shirt off in a parking lot in the middle of winter for half the movie, being the beast for most of the movie. So I was like, I need to get bigger, I need to do this properly. Magnus, Lightback, who's this amazing Swedish trainer, sounds like a Viking, looks like a Viking, trains like a Viking, eats like a Viking. He was intense and really helped me get there. He's an amazing trainer, great guy. But the physicality of any role, I think, affects what I'm doing. It's not just like the internal and then you employ a physicality. The physicality, your brain is connected to your body, right? So if you are constantly like this, it has an effect on your brain. It's not just like you're putting the physicality on it. It works two ways, you know. And the very simple expression of that, the very, like, and I'm not trying to be reductive, but if you walk around trying to slam walls, punch walls, and shout a lot, you will eventually get yourself into a state of anger, or at least of hyped up aggression. That's a physical piece of information coming from your body to your brain, and then back, and it feeds in a continual loop. So I feel like the physical side of things is always there. Sometimes it happens by accident because you're just connected to the character. And a lot of them in Split and Glass came very naturally without even having to chase it down too much. And then some of them we had to really work hard on to just pinpoint because they weren't coming quite as naturally, you know what I mean? Like Dennis came very naturally, Hedwig came crazy naturally. Although the voice of Hedwig didn't, we just weren't getting it. And then Knight said, I want him to have like a speech impediment of some kind, and so we gave him a lisp. And that helped us find him because there was a sort of an innocence in him that he didn't even care about it, he wasn't shy about it, he wasn't anything about it. And I think that there's a kind of innocence of youth that can help you. As we get older, we start to try and change those things about ourselves. Maybe we want to go through some kind of therapy or whatever, or maybe we just feel shy about it, so we close down a bit. But he was massively open about it. But yeah, Patricia took a little bit longer, physicality-wise. But yeah, anyway, physicality. Woo!
My last two questions, so feel free to start lining up in those various mics, but in the vein of physicality, I love how your career feels so cumulative. Like there's always a lesson learned and growth in every single role. There's so much density to your work, and I find, obviously Split got to see that at once, but there's, with Leech on Atomic Blonde, there's an interesting stunt choreography that I feel like changed the way you physically see space and move. Do you find you assess rooms in 3D space and the z-axis of life differently after doing so much stunt work?
No, but I do assess the space a lot because where you are in the space also is information for the audience. Do you know what I mean? If I'm standing right here on the stage in the middle, I'm kind of saying I believe I've got enough goods to make you all sit and look at me. But if I'm like, you know, if I'm way over there, of course this is so reductively simple, but if I'm way over there then I don't feel like that. But yeah, where the space and where you are in the space and how you use the space and how you move through the space becomes really important. Sometimes they just want to put you in a box, like a kind of like that. You're like, yeah, but I want to be over here. And then halfway through, I want to go over here. And they're like, no, we just need you in a close-up. And the close-up is like, well, that's great, but I'm not in a painting. I'm a human being, and this human being wants to tell his story by using the whole room. Sometimes that's going to take 18 hours to shoot, and they're like, we've got 4. But sometimes you can start to tell a story through movement as well as just truthful acting into the camera. Do you know what I mean? Which is great too.
Yeah, and I feel like the stunt coordinators that are starting to direct are so masterful at that, so we're getting some really dynamic filmmaking right now. Yeah,
really dynamic. I think Leech is amazing. I've never really been on a set where the action was so brilliantly put together as that. I had massive respect for him.
Now, my last question is about Sandman, because I think Sandman is one of those books that, Sandman's one of those books that changes you. That Sandman's one of those books that you can rediscover, or you can reread every year, every 5 years, different points in your life. Sandman's a different book. And I'm wondering, after playing Morpheus, what changed you most? Did you have a before and after?
For those of you that don't know, I'm not Morpheus in the TV show. You're like, that dude looks way older at MEGACON than the guy in the Netflix TV show. I do the audiobook. Thank you, 15 people.
It's incredible.
Yes. I think to take it even further than what you're saying, at different points in your life, Sandman is different. I think that from one comic to the next, Sandman can be incredibly different, you know? Sometimes it's like a dark, noir, sort of investigative kind of thing. Sometimes, yeah, it's like sort of CSI fucking dreamscape. And then sometimes it's just like the most philosophical, poetic, investigation of loss, and then it'll be like a comedic jaunt through death's daily work, you know what I mean? And then the next one will be Shakespeare and performing Midsummer Night's Dream for the first time to Titania and Oberon. It's wild, as Neil is wild. Neil Gaiman is a genius, and the worlds that he creates with just a short amount of space and time in Sandman, he creates whole worlds in something that takes you 20 minutes to read sometimes. And I don't know, for me, he's a national treasure for Great Britain, absolutely. I think he's a master storyteller.
Read Sandman, if you haven't already. All right, first question up over here.
So, coincidentally, my question is also about Sandman.
Yes.
What do you have a favorite part that you got to read, a favorite part of the dreaming? And if not, what was it like working with Neil Gaiman?
I never got to work with Neil on this. I got to work with Neil previously on Neverwhere, which was great. It's another cool Neil thing. What did I prefer? Probably the whole monologue of like, I am moving through dream, I am back. The bit where he's like basically detailing how he piggybacks on people's dreams to get where he wants to go. I love that because it was also slightly poetic. And in the first season, we really tried to go for the iambic pentameter, the kind of poetic read at times. A lot of it got cut out. But I enjoyed chasing that down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go back and forth, so we'll go this side this time.
Hi, James. I'm Brandon. Over here. When you're creating a character as an actor, what's the first thing that you try and figure out every single time before you get started?
I guess, it sounds, you probably heard this a lot, but objective is important. Objective is really important, but I think even more important is find out the internal obstacles that they have that are stopping them from getting their objective. Not just the external ones, not the physical ones, not the adversarial ones, but the ones that are almost their interior antagonist, I think, gives a character conflict. And that's really what we come to the movies for. It's what we come to the theatre for. It's what we want to read about. We want some form of conflict, whether that's within the character, without the character, between countries, whatever it is. But if you can carry it within you as an actor, then you are a walking conflict. And that is the main thing I think we want to watch, even in comedy and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be fighting or angry, but like conflict is just things that are working against each other. And if you find that within you as an actor, I think that you're immediately more interesting to the audience.
Thank you.
I wanted to start out with you were amazing in Narnia. It was my favorite movie you ever did.
Thank you.
And I was wondering, how was it being a part of a really great movie franchise?
That was awesome. Look, I felt lucky to have that gig. I was, people didn't really know who I was, and I got this cool part and this big old thing. And really, I think they were going for much more well-known actors at the time, who were older and more established, but I think they quickly realised that while in the book, you kind of get away with it, having a sort of 30 or 40-year-old man kidnap a little girl and make her go unconscious in his under tree lair. You're like, this is really weird. So they needed to hire somebody who was really young and looked young as well. And I mean, I don't know if you know, but I looked like I was 14 until I was about 32. So it was, I had a bit of experience in TV and stuff, but I hadn't done too much else, and so I got that gig. I felt so lucky to be a part of that company, and to work with Andrew Adamson, who's an absolute gentleman and a real visionary, I think. It was brilliant. I'd loved those stories, and I'd loved that TV show that the BBC did back when I was a little guy, so getting to be involved in something like that was amazing. But I remember going into K&B the first time, which is the kind of creature effects workshop in LA that Howard Berger runs, which is incredible, by the way. And they had this massive Aslan in there. And they were just working on it and getting a model ready, but I knelt on my knees and I was like, my lord. And, and I was like, this is amazing, this is so good. It was really, stuff like that's what made me so excited to be an actor as a kid. I've just been very lucky to actually have those experiences as a professional.
Thank you.
So my question is about Atonement. I really love the long take at Dunkirk, and I was wondering if you could just talk about that and how it was as an actor to have to film like a 4-minute long take?
I'll say this, if you guys haven't seen Atonement, and there must be people in here who haven't, I'm not even going to tell you to watch the whole film. Of course I would love that. And please, if you download it, make sure I will get like a tiny bit residual, so that'd be good. It will help pay for my family vacation. But even if you're not going to watch the whole film, watch the 4-minute take of Dunkirk, which is, if you don't know, is where the combined Allied forces, mainly consisting of British and a little bit of French, had been pushed back to the beaches of Dunkirk, and they were all going to die. And if we could have got 50,000 out of there, it would have been incredible and an achievement. We would maybe have been able to hold out against the Germans a little bit longer, but they actually ended up getting 360,000 out. So it's an incredible one take or one camera shot that lasts for 4 minutes, involving thousands of extras. And I think we cover like a quarter of a mile on foot during that time. We managed to do it 3.5 times. The first 2 times didn't work. The third time, we think we nailed it, and that's what you see in the film. The fourth time, our camera operator, who was on Steadicam, like collapsed halfway through the take. Because it was such, like, honestly, it was like he was running a marathon with a Steadicam, and those things are heavy. And we're on sand, there's like horses pretending to get shot. Every time we walk past a horse, a stuntman would take his gun away from their head like that, and the horse would reel and fall down. And this isn't a shot that's all choreographed, like, you're starting over there. Honestly, watch it, it's amazing. I've never felt so immersed. Maybe I did a movie, an improvised movie recently called My Son. Maybe then I felt more immersed, but other than that, I've never felt so immersed in just a piece of art, in an evocation of history, and in something that was trying to respect the sacrifice of people willing to go to war for something to believe in, you know.
Thank you.
Great question. I love Atonement. Thank you. Over here.
How you doing, James? I mean, we all know you from plenty of different genres, you know, sci-fi and horror and fantasy, but with like the renaissance of TV that we have going on right now, or movies in general, what franchise right now would you love to just jump into, and if they called you tomorrow and be like, hey, we want you?
This is like the most tricky question, because like if I answer this honestly, then it's just like, hey, McAvoy makes a pitch to be in such and such a movie, and that always, or such and such a TV show, and that always looks really uncool, because it always looks like I'm going, hey Dad, can I have a job? So, in answer to your question, there's loads of superhero stuff kicking around, and I'm not ever going to close that down, but maybe not that. I don't know is my answer. Something funny. I definitely want to do something funny. I feel like I've not been funny enough since I was in my 20s, so I feel like I'd like to do something funny, but that's my crap, non-specific answer to your very specific question. You're welcome.
Anti-headline accomplished.
Hi. What is the question that you were hoping to be asked today, or the thing that you really wanted to talk about?
There's so many naughty answers to that question. I really want to talk about good old-fashioned fucking no. What is the one question I wanted to talk about? I am not an actor with much of an agenda. What do I want to get talked about? I don't know, pal. What do I want to talk about? Erectile dysfunction? No. I don't know. I've got nothing for you, mate. I'm so sorry. There's nothing I need to explore publicly.
Thank you.
Hi. So in the movie Split, you get to play multiple different personalities, and you do an amazing job at it. I want to know, who is your favorite personality to play, and why was it Patricia?
Do you know what? I go back and forth in my memory about what ones I enjoy playing most. I loved playing Hedwig because it was such a freedom, innocence, and yet the conflict that I was talking about before, there's a slight nastiness in him as well. There is a kind of a bit of a violence in him as well. Patricia, was fun because she was so put together, yet there was definitely a threat of violence about her. And there was also something kind of kinky about her as well, I felt. And in fact, in my mind, she was a nun. And she had sort of forsaken her original faith, which was some form of Christianity, but she had transferred that faith in her belief in the beast. But the reason that I think she represents suppression and what you do with suppression and how suppression can, in some people anyway, express itself. And so that suppressing all those desires for so much time being a nun, I think, had sort of developed a real kink in her as well. And a slightly violent kink as well. But she was great. She was good fun.
Thank you.
Hi, James. Following up with her question, again, you were outstanding in that movie. I think that's one of my favorite movies.
Thank you.
And Patricia is my favorite character as well. So you were talking about the physicality of the characters and how the character and the actor are one and the same. How were you able to change from one character to another in just a second?
I think that my favorite kind of acting is when you are effectively going from 90 to 1, or you're going from left to right, or you're going from happy to sad, like that anyway. And so my favorite kind of acting is as dynamic, I think, as Split is. It's just that in Split, you were doing it with different characters. When he was calm and happy and in a good place, one of those characters would be in charge. But when he needed to react to something that might be making him angry or might be making him feel under threat, he would then, instead of just becoming a slightly different version of himself, he would become a different person. And when a character is really extreme and doesn't have split personalities, I enjoy doing that. So it kind of felt just normal in some ways. It was just that the physical exploration and the physical expression of each character had to be so much more defined, so that even if you weren't changing costumes or changing makeup and all that, you could still show the audience that you were somebody different. But I think that mindset, like I say, physicality and internal, emotional and intellectual acting work aren't two separate things for me. They inform each other. So when I started to feel different, my body would start to get different, and yeah, I'd do it a little bit on purpose, but sometimes it's just happening of its own accord as well. I think if you're really paying attention to the story as an actor, you will do, and if you really understand the story and know it, and you understand storytelling, you will do what you need to do to tell the story. You aren't left going like, oh, what do I need to do next? And shall I just be moody and interesting or whatever? You're like, no, I need to be really unsettling in this moment, and I need to sexually sort of make this person feel uncomfortable, and then I need to make the audience laugh. And so you kind of know what you got to do a little bit. You know your markers that you're trying to hit, and if you give yourself up to it, the right stuff usually just starts coming out, if you're the right actor for the role, you know. But yeah, bad answer to the good question.
You were the right actor for the role. Thank you.
I actually have a follow-up on her question. I'm going to totally break this chain. Hey, when you have something like that, is it like a music note you can see and the director changes like a composer? Do you have it structured where you're hitting certain beats for you?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's times where it's a bit more mercurial and I can't quite see exactly what I'm going to do, but those kind of murkier, kind of grey moments are usually, I've got a waypoint ahead of me, and I know that I'm going to hang the next beat of the performance on that, and that it will either play with or counterplay with what came before and what's going to come after. And hopefully as well, you're trying to seed things in at the beginning that will pay off at the end too.
That's cool, that's fascinating, I love that. Sorry to interrupt everyone in this whole room, right here.
Hi, I wanted to know how I felt to act alongside Bruce Willis.
Oh man, Bruce, I watched Bruce when I was a little boy in a TV show called Moonlighting. Amazing. He was like so dynamic, so funny, so crazy in it actually to begin with as well. And then the show got more serious, which was still great. But he is a living legend, and getting to work with him was a privilege and an honour, as it was with Sam Jackson. Just absolute, just legends, man. And then you're in it along with him. You're like having to pinch yourself. Listen, I just wish him all the best, and I wish him and his family so much love, and your positive thoughts and vibes are with him, you know.
Thank you.
Hello, James. My question is, if you were to play a live-action version of a cartoon character, whether it's comic strips, graphic novels, TV, movies, video games, which character would you play and why? So live action.
That's a really good question. I don't think I'm right for anything in it, but I used to love Thundercats when I was a kid. I don't really see myself as Lion-O or Panthro. I could maybe play Tigra. Or hey, fuck it, maybe I could do Schnuff. But yeah, I'd say that would be a big one. And then there used to be a show called Dogtanian, which I loved. This is complete silence develops. And the other thing, I remember I used to watch this TV show called Jason the Wheeled Warriors. Does anybody ever remember that? Jason the Wheeled Warriors, which is this sort of anti-environmentalist sort of theme where like plants are the bad guys and the guys driving cars are all the good guys that will chop up all the plants. Weird, man. Weird. When you look back, you're like, oh wow, that's pretty fucked up. Who financed that kids' cartoon? Was it General Motors or what? But Jace had this like white silver streak in his hair, and I was always like, damn, that's really cool. I would love to have that when I'm older. And then I've got this big old white silver streak, and it's not fake. I promise.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cartoon.
Can you see my silver streak? It's there. I promise.
All right, we're gonna try for 2 more on each side, and then we're gonna take a picture at the end. So if you're in back of the line, you can come up front as a recompensation. Good sir. Oh wait, ma'am in the front.
Yeah, it's okay.
I saw the scream mask, I got distracted.
Hi, I'm a big fan and I really admire your work. My question is, I know you were mentioning the physicality, but other than the physicality, did you do any other research for Split to be able to play so many different characters with many different traits?
Well, again, it was such a late call-up in the day because I think Joaquin Phoenix was going to do it to begin with, and he backed out super last minute. So in terms of research, I had very little time. I did as much reading as I could, but I did a lot of chasing down YouTube bloggers, because a lot of people with DID would find themselves sort of video diarising on YouTube, and that became really like a direct line into someone's living room, do you know what I mean? Where they were just opening up about the way people do on YouTube, about how they're feeling about this, that, and the next thing. That was a great tool and a great asset for me. But other than that, it was committing to the script, committing to the story, and trying to understand what was right about the story and how we could really help tell that at different points. At the same time as not being exploitative of somebody with a real significant mental thing that they live with every single day of their lives. I feel like Split did that pretty well, even though I think one of the arguments against Split is that you're vilifying somebody with an illness. My answer to that has always been like, just because you've got DID doesn't mean you get to be the cool bad guy in the movie. I'm like, well, that's a shame. Because you just got to show the good guys the whole time if you get anything going on with you. I don't think that's right either. Yeah, that was again a petered out answer to a specific question.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Thank you, cheers.
James, so first a little bit of love for Children of Dune. Definitely underappreciated.
Thank you.
My actual question is about his Dark Materials. And so, a dark show in many ways, with child heroes. And I'm wondering, behind the scenes, did you do anything to sort of lighten the mood or anything memorable with a cast like that, you know, with very dark subjects, death, etc., with child actors to make them feel better?
I mean, look, one of those child actors is Daphne Keane. You know, Logan's daughter, who's even meaner than Logan. So I think, you know, she's got some depths. Look, they were a great bunch. I actually only got to spend a bit of season 1 with Daphne, and then after that, I never see it again, even in season 2 or season 3. I love those books. They're I think some of my favourite books. His Dark Materials is what we're talking about. They're incredible books. Please, please, please read them if you haven't. I think what's really interesting is you're taking a couple of kids and they're effectively going to kill. It's a false god, but they're going to kill God. It's not God as we believe in God in the Christian sense or whatever, but it is something that looks fairly like him. So you've got these kids doing some incredible things, doing dangerous things, doing potentially controversial and quite volatile things in terms socially speaking, you know. And it was just important to sort of make them understand that, but also protect them from that a little bit. And I think the production, not me, I think the production has done that particularly well. But I mean, it's an incredible story. It's something that, again, I've been so lucky to be a part of so many of the things that I've loved as a young man or a child, and I now have got to be in them as an adult. And playing Lord Asriel, as much of an asshole as he is, as much as he is the single worst father in the entire history of fatherdom, he was somebody that I jumped at the chance to play. And again, I got the call last minute, like someone else was meant to do it, and my next door neighbour, who's also one of my best friends, Callie Crawford, was casting it, and she called, she didn't call me, we're sitting there together, and she goes like, how did you feel about playing Lord Asriel? And I was like, I thought it was taken. She was like, yeah, I've had a bit of a problem. I was like, okay. I said, when do you want me to start? And she was like, Monday. I was like, I'm in. It was awesome, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the part, like without even reading the script, so it was an absolute gift and a joy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, this is going to appear our last question. I apologize to everyone that didn't get a question, but again, if you want to come up front for this photo after, please, by all means, but Scream gets the last question.
Hey there, do you have a crazy audition story?
Yeah, I've got a few. I once actually have a fight with an inflatable couch. The advert was the advertisement was for Reebok, I think, and you guys know Reebok, right? Yeah. And it was sort of, or maybe it was Adidas, I can't remember. But the idea was like, get off the sofa and go run, or get off the sofa and go and do some exercise. Idea that the sofa is your enemy, and they were saying if you wear our sneaks, you'll be able to get off the sofa and go get healthy and ripped. But the sofa was trying to keep you in the sofa, so the audition consisted of, could you fight the sofa, please? And I know there are literally hundreds of actors who all live in London of the similar age of me, who all auditioned for that fucking commercial. And all came out with like fucking sprained wrists and turned ankles and all that shit. And then the other one was for, and my agent knows this, and I think she's okay with me telling this story now, but there was, you know the musical We Will Rock You? Yeah? So when they first were putting that out and coming up with that, like in the West End, they were looking for somebody young to play the lead, and they just needed somebody who could sing a bit, who could act, and had a bit of presence, and could maybe play guitar, and I could kind of do all those things a little bit. Hopefully my acting was better than just a little bit. And so I had to go in, play the guitar, sing an old sort of rock song, and that was it. I did not want to be in a musical, and I did not think I was good enough at playing guitar or singing to be in that room. But as all actors do, they go like, oh, you need me to ride a horse? Yeah, I can ride a horse. I was like, oh yeah, I can play guitar and sing a song. And then as the day's getting closer and closer, I'm like sweating blood, and I'm like, I also don't want to be in musicals, right? I like some of them, but I don't want to really be in musicals at this point. And so I go down the basement of this massive like rehearsal room in central London, and they go, James, please, take it away. And I strummed the first chord of, I think it was like Hey Jude, and I just went, listen, I'm really sorry. I've just, my best friend just got knocked down by a car, and he's okay, he's going to be okay, we think. He's in the ambulance, so he's on his way to hospital. And I don't, and I'm like in tears at this point, and I'm like, I just don't think I should be, I think I need to go be with him. They were like, no, go, run, go be with your friend. You know, and we'll bring you back in another day. And I was like, oh no, you don't have to worry about it. No, I've taken up too much of your time. Anyway, my agent calls up, she's like, what the fuck's happening? And I'm like, I'm really sorry. And I had to come clean with her, and she's like, I'm never putting you up for a musical again.
That's awesome, thank you.
What a great last question. Let's give it up for James McAvoy, everybody. I appreciate it.